Hello everyone and welcome back to a very special edition of Alteryx tutorials. Today is my 50th video and we're going to do something a little special for number 50. First of all, it will be an intermediate challenge, but it will be more than that. So we're doing weekly challenge number 71, but it's going to be plus more. We're going to be talking about unions and we're going to be talking about appends and how you necessarily deal with those over in Alteryx. So it will be joins and unions and appends. Let's go ahead and jump on in here. And today we're going to start by talking about SQL joins and the coding that really kind of goes into them and what they are. And if we're using a Venn diagram for this, and if you're familiar with SQL joins, you've probably seen Venn diagrams very close to this. And if you aren't familiar with joins, this might be a good kind of update as to really starting to understand and digest what it means. When you have a join, you have two sets of data, A and B. And an inner join is the most common join. It's almost like a VLOOKUP, if you will, where it says, hey, where have I got data set A and data set B, and I've got something between the two that is in common, that joins the two, that I can find in both sets. In a VLOOKUP, it would be, you've got a key over there in supervisor table and it comes back. And oh, by the way, if it comes back NA, that's not a join, right? That's not a lookup. It's an unsuccessful lookup. You get the NA. And I'm also going to be referencing Excel in this. I'm going to take SQL and Alteryx and Excel and kind of blend them all together. But this is our inner join. What sets are in both? Now up here you have what's known as a left join. And this is also a left join. These two diagrams over here on the left are both left joins. And over here similarly, these two over here on the right are right joins. The difference between the two is whether you include that inner join set or whether you don't. And notice that you've got your code on this is on A equals B, on A equals B, where B is null. So you don't want this, right? Same thing, it's the exact reflection over here on the right, so I won't bother to go through that. These two down here at the bottom, when you look at them from a SQL perspective, are both outer joins. This one, sometimes called a full outer join. This one is not. This one you would call, and there are different names, and I'll talk about it over on Alteryx as well, but a full outer join inclusionary, where you're including the inner join data, that set right there in the middle, or full outer join exclusionary, where you do not include it. Over here, let's go ahead and take a look at Alteryx. I'm going to back out for just a moment, and I'm going to scroll. And you're going to see that my flow today is also a little bit different. I am going top to bottom. Typically, you would see me put together a process flow that goes from left to right. That's how I build all of my Alteryx joins. However, if you like, you can actually change that. And to do that, you just come out here to the canvas somewhere and click on it. And then you'll see where it says layout direction, horizontal. And if you click the little pull down, or vertical. I can change this. If I click on vertical, boom, it's up and down. And if I go back and I tell it horizontal, it's left to right. Today, because we're talking about left and right joins and two data sets, when we've got the join tool here, you'll see that it has an L and an R, a left and a right. And that corresponds to data. If I'm going vertical, it corresponds to data that's left and right. Over here, it still says left and right, but really it's kind of a top and bottom, and you have to transpose that a little bit, right? Well, for today's discussion, just to help clarify, we've got a left set of data. In this case, it's the employees, and it's got a supervisor key. And on the right side, we've got the supervisor data, and there's the supervisor key. When we go ahead and run this, coming directly out of here, we see the left data. and we have 8 records. And over here, we've got the supervisor data, and we've got 6 records. And then we bring them together with the join tool, and you'll see that we are on the left, we're using supervisor key. On the right, it is just called key. When we go and we look at our data, we've got a supervisor key. And this is going to correspond to information in the other table that is a key. We come down here, we do a left and a right key join. Now, left, join, and right, these are going to correspond. This join is going to correspond to what we talked about a couple moments ago in the inner join. Here's where the 2 sets of data are the same. And so out of the join, we come down here, and it's a straight line. See that thick line coming out of the join? Inner join. These are the pieces of data where the employee and the supervisor key are the same, and over here is the same. Where they exist in both. Now, do we need both supervisor key and key? No, we don't. So we could easily come up here and deselect one or the other, whichever one we decide we wanted to keep. And if I reran this right now, what you'd see is only one of these keys. And it would give you the employee, the department, the sup key, and the supervisor. And quite frankly, if you didn't want either one of them, you just wanted the who's without the keys, you could deselect both. Simple enough. Now let's come over here, and we're going to talk about what's going on with this. This is a left outer or exclusive left join. These are the 2 pieces of data that exist that are not joined. They don't exist over in the supervisor table. So we've got a null value that doesn't exist, and we've got a Crandall Cook from finance, and his supervisor key of 6 apparently doesn't exist. And when we go and we look at that, you know what? You're right. We've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 8. And number 6, supervisor key, doesn't exist. Let's go over here and take a look at this right outer or exclusive right. And you'll see that Todd Demps and Carrie Money don't exist. So these are 2 records from this right set of data that don't have any employees that are matching. They don't have anybody who works for them. But it allows you to see, without creating any additional code, what's going on. Now let's jump over here for a moment to Excel. And we've got a couple of different tabs. We've got EMPs, we've got SUPs, and we want to do this same thing. Well, how do you do this over in Excel? Well, we do this over in Excel by doing something like this. SUP, and then we do a VLOOKUP, right? And here we are. We're going to click on our supervisor key, and where are we going to find it? We're going to find it in the SUPs table, and we're going to bring back number 2, and we're going to do a range of false. Now, mind you, this is even a little bit more sophisticated than a lot of times you use, because I'm using named ranges, which if you look at this, I've got a named range of SUPs. How do you do that? Come over here and SUPs. Oh, look at this, SUPs. Oh, but wait a minute, SUPs should be highlighting all of that. Wait, what? It doesn't. It only highlights that. Well, what do we got to do? Let's come over here to Name Manager, and let's go to SUPs. And we come in here, and we expand the range. And we tell it, okay, we're going to include all of that. Now we close. Now if we highlight this, you can see that it's SUPs. A lot of times, however, when you're doing this, you haven't got named ranges. You've got something that says something along this line where you're like, hey, I want to come over here and I want to look at that. And I'm going to do it just like this for a moment, where it'll say this. Okay, so So your keys do like that. Well, now if you drag this down, what happens to that? Well, unless you have gone in there and you've told it, hey, this is an absolute range of $/$/$/$. Now I can come in here and I can do this. But look at all the pain in the neck that I have to go through to do that, right? And by the way, what's going on here? I've got a couple of NAs. This is reflecting the exact same thing as the inner join. Those are the ones that joined. And yes, these are the left outer join. Now, I'm looking at this and I want to go, but wait a minute, how do I know? You don't. You don't know that, guess what? Todd Demps and Carrie Money don't have any employees, but you would never know that over here. Now think of this if you're doing a table with hundreds of employees or thousands or tens of thousands. If you've got a huge company, you've got tens of thousands of employees and you want to be joining these, it's pretty hard to come in here and then have a real quick idea that this is here. So what would you have to do? You'd have to then do, a lookup and say emps. Now the shortcoming of this is going to be very obvious very quickly. And again, how about I do a VLOOKUP? And I do a VLOOKUP on the key, I guess, because I don't have an employee key, right? So I've already created an emps table, so let's do it from emps, and let's say 2 and false. And I do this. Wait, what? What on earth? That doesn't make any sense. Guess what? If you aren't careful, this is what you do. You're doing it, this is your table, right? Where's your table? Where is my table? Is that my table? Let's go find my table. So we come over here and go emps. Oh, you know what it's doing? It's looking at the employee key, because when you do a lookup, it always takes the first character. So now you might even make the mistake of doing this because you didn't realize you're looking up the employee key, not the supervisor key. And so this is giving you a completely mixed up set of data that you don't have clear visibility to. Now, to correct this, you actually have to come in here, and you can't do this and look back negative. You would actually have to potentially either replicate or move. So now we take this and we go, okay, I'm going to take this and undo that. Let's see if I can shoot a little better than that. And I push this over to the side. Well, is that? Nope. Emps is still going to start there. Well, that doesn't work. So now I got to come up here and I do this and I say emps. Emps, where is emps? Well, that's starting at B at the moment. So you know what? Let's scratch the whole thing. Come over here and I do that. There, I'm capturing all my emps. Good, great. Check, close, here. Wait, what? What is this looking? Oh, it's drawing back the second one. Now let's at least draw back the name. So we got to change our formula. And we got to do this. And now we finally find out that Todd and Carrie don't have any employees that report to them. But here's another problem. This only gives you one name. It doesn't give you all of the employees that report to them. It just lists an identity of whether yes or not indeed there are employees. So this is really kind of just a yes or no. Does anybody report? Over here, we've got this, right? So we can see that, and we could do it now. We could do a pivot table and say, hey, how many of these people? Let's jump back over here to Alteryx. You see how complicated this starts to get when we want to understand not just who is the matching and who is not, but wait a minute, what about soups who don't match up? And it goes both ways. And I've definitely had data sets over the years where I have needed to do a VLOOKUP on both sides. In Alteryx, you have that immediately, right out of the gate. Now let's say that we wanted, instead of this right here, which is what we're getting just, and I'm going to back this out, we're getting just this set on the left, which is just the things that were on the left, or just this things that were on the right. We wanted to put them together. Well, you do that quickly enough in a union tool. A union tool will bring those two back together. So we're going to be looking at the A plus the inner join. So when you look at this, it's the left. And then this other line coming into the union tool is the join. And we've got this union tool where we can see quickly enough those items that did join and those items that didn't. And our result looks like this, where you can see here is the set that did join up, and here on the left they didn't. Okay, Crandall Cook in finance, supervisor key 6. Well, 6 doesn't exist. So now we have all of the matches and all of the left unmatched. And sometimes that is called a left join inclusive, a full left join, a full left outer join. Again, don't get too caught up in the semantics. Language is important, but it's more important to understand what your data is matching and what it is not matching. Likewise, over here on the right, we want to join all of these and the joins. And so we've got this union, right? And it looks like this. And when we go look at the data, what does it look like? Well, again, it's going to have all of those items that did join, and it's going to be inclusive of those things that didn't. Now let's talk about the final two, which is a full outer join exclusive and a full outer join inclusive. Let's talk about the exclusive first. And what you're doing is you're taking the left and the right and you're bringing them together and saying, okay, we've got Aaron and there's no supervisor. Well, we've got a supervisor but no employee. And then we've got Crandall Cook in finance in 6, but there's no supervisor. And we've got Carrie Money and there's no employees. And this gives you the exclusive. Now, let's bring this all together into one big party. And you can see this is a full outer join inclusive where it's saying, hey, Aaron is missing over here in the supervisor. You know what? She doesn't have a key. That's why she's missing. Here's all of the ones that joined, as well as here's a supervisor with no employees. Here's another one with a key, but she doesn't have a supervisor. And here is Carrie Money. These give you all of the different items that you've got in here. All right. Now let's go down here and talk about, we've got another set of data. We've got our employees and we've got our set of new employees, and we want to bring them together and we want them into one big table. This is the job of the union tool. Here's the union, and we do an auto config by name, but I suggest you do manually config just to ensure that this doesn't happen. Notice what you've got here. Watch this. Wait, all of these, and then wait, what? These names, emp doesn't match employee, department doesn't match department, and supervisor key doesn't match soup key. So in this table over here, you've got a bunch of new employees, Joe Black, James Kirk, Obi-Wan, Lucifer Morningstar. All of these people are joining and they've got a supervisor key. Why are they in different columns? Well, they're in different columns because they're named differently. Union tool gives you a great way to deal with that. We come over here and we do a config and we highlight these, or we move them over so that they align, and you'll see that emp's an employee and department and soup key and supervisor key, those are one and the same. So now when we run this, They all line up, and we have all of our employees all lined up together. Now, as a final piece to this, and I'm just going to go off of this set of data right here. I'll push this off to the side. The next thing, let's say, and I'm going to use this over here. Let's say we've got AD groups that we want to assign all of these people to all of these. They want to be able to publish reports and access to the hierarchy and company notices and HR information. So we've got these pieces of data. And over in Alteryx, it's simple enough. You know what? Let's go ahead and we're going to dump this. And I don't think I've done this yet, but I can take a quick glance. Quick glance. And here I go paste. Oh, let's undo that. And I do text input data. And I come up here and I select in the naming field and I go V. Active directory groups. Now, what do I want from these active directory groups? I want them to match up on every single one of these employees. I'm creating these new AD groups. I'm in IT, and I want to have these do what's known as append fields. Append fields. And how am I going to append my field? Right? I'm going to do here and here. And when you notice this, I'm appending the Active Directory group to every single employee. Now over here, I've got 16 employees, right? 16 records. And I have 4. And for those of you who might take a guess, let's go ahead and put a browse on this and say, how many records do you think I'm going to come up with? And so if I do a browse, here we go, and I hit run, now you can see our result is that Joe Black has been put into publish, hierarchy, company notices, and HR information. And James Kirk, all 4. Obi-Wan, all 4. This is the append tool, and what it will do is it will add every character to every one. Now, make sure that you take a look at this and you understand what you're doing when you do an append, then that is putting every record on every record. And so if you have a bunch, you're going to air out. And so you're going to want to, if you're doing this by intent and you know what you're doing, then you're allowing all appends, and we go ahead and we run this, and you see that we've got 4 times 16, and that equals 64 records, which is exactly what we should have. When you come over here and you're doing this in Excel, how would you necessarily do that? You're going to take the employees and you're going to copy them, and you're going to maybe paste them. Oh, that doesn't line up. Wait, what? Oh, I got to do this. I got to come over here and I got to You understand. This could get kind of messy because now you did this switching around and make this line up, but these guys don't. And do you have an employee key on this yet? You don't. So now you're caught over here kind of, how do you do this? And doing a whole bunch more lookups and a whole bunch of jimmying around. Over here, you don't have any of that. You've got this data, you're bringing them together. Here's your new, here's your old, here's your appends, right? And then you could do a join on all of these so that you know who the supervisor is. Quick and easy. All right, I am Mark Thompson. This has been a session of Alteryx tutorials, a very special session. It was video number 50 for me. I hope that this little bit longer in-depth discussion about some of these tools on the join menu, very important. We talked about appends, we talked about joins, and we talked about unions. I hope you have a great day. As always, hit like, hit share, and we welcome your comments. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.